welcome. In this video, we are going to be kind of taking a look at and critiquing the resume that got me my first real software development internship as a high school student. Now, some quick background on me. I am not a FANG engineer. I do not work at like Facebook or Apple or Microsoft or any of the big tech companies, but I am employed as a professional software engineer, professional full stack developer, and I am in high school. So I mean that counts for something. Now, the first resume that I used to kind of get into this position that I'm in sort of right now was not that good, but we're going to look through it and kind of critique it, and then we're also going to get to look at the current resume that I have at the end of this video. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Now, when pulling up this old resume, the first thing I kind of see is, of course, the top section here. Now, I put my name and then my simple contact information like my GitHub, my website, and my email. And this is all right. This is some information. I put a little bit more nowadays, but again, we'll see that later. So yeah. And then we have this little objective statement right here. Now, for the objective statement, I found, it's half and half in terms of usefulness. Today, I don't really find too much of a use for it because, as you can see, it takes up a good amount of space. A space that could be used for several bullet points on a part later down in the resume. So, use that as you wish. If you don't really have too much to talk about, like as you can see right here in this first resume, you can see all of the open space. And frankly, I probably should have just made my text a little bit bigger and then removed some of this huge open space in the resume because this doesn't look that great to me. There's just there's just a ton of white space here. So of course, filling more space was all right to do for this resume. So, I don't really have too much of an opinion on the kind of objective statement. Now, the first section that I put here was my skills. And the reason for this was I didn't I also put my technical projects. And, this is actually really quick. This is one of the big parts of this resume is I'm using a 2-column layout. And, there's a lot of debate in terms of what resume template looks the best. I actually used a resume template on something called Latex, which was I got it from a YouTuber called Clement Miolescu, and he kind of did a video on his resume that got him into Google. And I kind of followed that same template that he used to do that, and it was all right. Although, nowadays I actually use Microsoft Word, or I use Google Docs specifically to create my resume, and it looks somewhat similar to this, but yeah, there's a couple different tools that you can use to make resumes, but I personally recommend Google Docs nowadays so that you can have good keywords and just, so that your resume can be automatically scanned by the algorithms, because when you submit to a job, they will scan your resume, and if it doesn't meet certain criteria, sometimes they just won't even look at it. They won't even have a human look at it. So sometimes using something like LaTeX will make your resume harder to search and stuff like that. So yeah, this first section here is the skills section. And the reason why I put this here at the top as opposed to, say, work experience or education was, again, a personal situation. I'm in high school, so although I have taken some community college classes, I'm still technically a high school student, and putting education at the top just didn't feel too right. And even today, it still does not feel right because, a lot of employers will just take one look and you're disqualified. And to kind of counteract that, I put all of my more impressive, things like my skills, work experience, technical projects at the top so that, maybe by the time they get down to education, it's, I've softened the blow in terms of that. So that's all strategic planning on my part. If you've never had an internship and you are a new grad, I would definitely put education at the top or something similar because it's a good, it's a good impressive factor unless you're in high school like me. So I put that at the bottom. And then for work experience, I had worked as a summer software intern at a company called Robolink, and it was all right. I didn't do that many impressive things at that company, aside from teaching some summer camps for coding. So I didn't feel super confident about putting that at the top. So that's why I ended up putting my skills, which were my technical skills. I listed off C++, Python, JavaScript. This is a good way to kind of like list your skills. Some people like to rate their skills, like on their resume, they'll have some ratings. I don't personally like that method because really it's for the employer to rate your skills in a technical interview, and you rating them don't hold that much water, except like for, well, actually, it doesn't show up in this resume. But like, if you are gonna rate your own skills, I would maybe make only two, maybe three categories. Like really good at, or I wouldn't call it really good at, but like really good at, and then like sort of good at, and then I know how to write it, but I'm not super good. If you wanted to split your skills into like three ratings, then that would be all right. But the people who use like the stars, like out of 5 stars, they'll put like a number of stars. Like that's kind of just wasting space, frankly. And especially when you have a lot of skills to list, like if you're a full stack developer, for example, then that space is kind of valuable, and you don't want to waste it to add just ratings. And then here I have a soft skills section. I still have this to this day. It's a little bit like, some people think it's like filler. Depending on your own situation, you will kind of have a different opinion, and you will do a different things in terms of soft skills. But yeah, that's up to you to decide. And then we have the technical project section. Now this is where I was most confident, because these are all my projects that I've made. So I kind of just listed them at the top, talked, with 1 to 2 bullet points, or 1 to 4, actually 2 to 4 bullet points about what it is, what I did to make it, and all that stuff. So, this is all right. Again, let me go ahead and take a deeper look. Like features, material, and responsive design, built with P5.js, built using Electron.js, Node native modules, features manipulating. Like this is all right. Descriptions of projects, specifically because they're solo projects. I don't, everything I talk about is stuff that I did personally. So, I think this is okay, because I talked about the tech stack in the first kind of bullet, and then I talked about what it did in the next bullet, and then I kind of showed where you could find a demonstration, or where you could find a demo of the project itself. So overall, I liked how I did this technical project section. And then moving on, for entrepreneurial experience, Fiverr freelancer, I was a kind of, I was on Fiverr creating Discord bots. I would personally actually probably have rebranded that into maybe like independent software contractor, or independent developer, and then made the descriptions more relevant, and then move that over maybe into the work experience section, or something like that. But I don't think it was actually really good to put this in this entrepreneurial experience section. And then I'm the president and co-founder of the entrepreneurship club at my school, and we actually we're developing an app, some software to do some stuff, and then we were going to market that. So that's why I put that on the resume, because it's relevant, because we're doing stuff related to software in there. And then here in the work experience section, again, I only had one prior work experience. I worked as a summer instruction intern, so I just have that kind of in the middle. And then down here in the education section, I took a specialized certificate program which lasted a year in C and C++ programming. Very, very useful. So I put that at the top, although it's kind of dated now because it's several years old. So it's pretty good, and I still keep it on my resume. And then the community college district, I take classes, and I'm working towards an associate's in computer science. So of course I put that, and then I put my high school, working towards a high school diploma, currently enrolled, and then I put some notable classes, of course. Calculus, because math is somewhat related to computer science, and then of course I took AP computer science, so I put that too. And then down on the bottom right, I have the fun facts section, and again, this is sort of a hit or miss section, depending on who your interviewer is. And nowadays I don't include it because I found it kind of wastes a bit of space. But definitely I've heard stories of that section working for a lot of people. It offers a point of connection with your interviewer. So of course that's dependent on you, whether or not you want to talk about your fun facts, your interests, hobbies, and stuff like that. Everyone really has a different opinion. I've heard plenty of people who say they're just a waste of space, and then I've heard other people say they can actually be pretty good. So overall, this resume is not bad, in my opinion. That is my biased opinion, though. But it's not bad. I have good explanations of my technical projects. I have a decent work experience explanation, like I was a STEM summer camp instructor teaching Arduino, Robot C, and Python, and I wrote some code utilizing, that second bullet point is a little vague. I would probably make that more specific, or remove it outright. And then, my skills section is all right. Soft skills, I honestly just kind of like think, these are somewhat general soft skills, but I think I possess them to a okay degree. The bilingual communication soft skill I have removed nowadays because, I'm not actually like fluent enough. So that was kind of a mistake on my part when I made this first resume here. So I removed that. Unless you can actually fluently speak in two languages, then you can put that in. And then again, for this education section, I was just going over the schools I attend and what I've done. So, nothing much to change there. The entrepreneurial experience section, I probably would either I would really want to rebrand this section because I don't think entrepreneurial experience sounds that great on a software engineering resume. So you'll see how I've changed that in my current resume in a little bit. So yeah, this was, like I said, an overall all right resume. It definitely got me into a software engineering intern role. And after that, of course, after you get into the role, it's all about you to kind of just determine your future. It doesn't matter about your resume anymore. The resume just gets your foot in the door, and then you have to do the rest. So of course, now after the summer, I've been taken on as a full-time or as a part-time software engineer, but a full-fledged software engineer. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and now take a look at my current resume, and it's a little bit different. The styling has changed a bit, but this, some people might think this was actually made in something called Latex, like I said, but it's not. It's made in Microsoft Word, and I highly recommend using, or it was made in Google Docs, but I highly recommend using Google Docs or Microsoft Word to make a resume, just so it's easily searchable. Like if you make one in Docs, you'll know that any algorithm that's trying to scan through your resume will be able to scan it 100% of the time. And even if you export it as a PDF on Docs, it'll still be a scannable PDF. So that's just a good way. And personally, in my experience, I've made like 10 different resumes. LaTeX is kind of hard to upgrade your resume. And LaTeX is this kind of programming language that is used for making documents. So people will write their resumes in LaTeX and use like some sort of LaTeX template and then change out some of the code, some of the text in that template to fit to their needs. But just using Microsoft Word is really the easiest, or Docs is really the easiest way to make your resume very easily changeable. Because you literally go in and you're editing a Word document and then you can change some words and that's it. And you can re-download. Like it's the simplest thing. So again, I highly recommend that. So let's go ahead and check out the differences. So here in the top section, we have my name, and then we have a bunch more contact information. And I personally, so this is one of the big changes. I personally prefer to have more contact info rather than less, because in the case that the employer doesn't ask for my LinkedIn and or GitHub, I still think they are very useful pieces of information. And of course, they're links, actually. You won't be able to see that in this, but they're links so when an employer or a resume reviewer clicks on it, they'll automatically link to where it's going. And of course, like again, if the company doesn't ask for this info, it still might be very useful to give it. Like your GitHub kind of shows your public code, so they can already get a snippet of your code, and then LinkedIn is just they can see who you are, they can see if you have recommendations from previous employers and stuff like that. So it's overall a very good thing. And then this my MacLeod.net right here is my portfolio website. That is where I kind of talk about all of my projects in much more detail than I do here on this resume. So yeah, that's pretty important to also have. So yeah, just overall more contact info here at the top. Notice I did get rid of that objective statement because the objective statement, again, just takes up space. And I don't personally like it that much, but plenty of people have found success with it. So I wouldn't discourage you from putting it. And then here we now have our work experience at the top, and the reason for that again is because I have one, a lot more work experience, and two, I have more confidence in the work experience that I have nowadays. So the biggest section, of course, is my current job as a part-time software engineer, where I kind of the first bullet is I talk about my technologies. I use Node.js, React, JS, React Native, Express, GraphQL, Postgres, and I use other stuff too. That I haven't updated this in a little bit. So yeah, I use more stuff now, but again, the first bullet kind of talking about what technologies I use, and then the rest of the bullets, talk about what I did. I've implemented, certain infrastructure, specifically me. I've redesigned the website. I've worked on several development teams. That one's a little bit vague, but it has to be due to the nature of what kind of company I work at. There's not super, super specific. So that's the one vague bullet. But the other ones, like, I kind of talk about the specifics of what I created. And then here, I still have that Robolink kind of, that Robolink work experience, and I've reworded a little bit, I think. Yeah, wrote automation code and camp educational material using Python, HTML, and Markdown, as opposed to previously I just said wrote code utilizing Python, HTML. Like that is extremely vague. So I made it more specific. And then here I've moved this to freelance. I have previously had that in the entrepreneurial experience section. Now freelance software developer contractor has kind of been put there. And I've done more work since I made that first, since I kind of made that first thing. So yeah, I developed chatbots in Node.js. I interacted with various APIs, including Google Translate, Google Sheets, Spotify. That's just a little section kind of talking about, I know APIs, I know some Node.js backend, stuff like that. It's just a good thing to have. And then I have my education, much of the same. I've removed some of the fluff information. In the previous one, I talked about coursework. I've actually removed my specific coursework. I just have my cumulative GPA. And then, I have, oh, actually, there is a small mistake in this resume, so good to know. I did not catch that. So yeah, my GPA is a little bit off from my high school, but I'll end up fixing that after this video. Good thing I was looking at it. And yeah, so I have my education, my GPAs, and then I have that UCSD extension thing still at the bottom. So yeah, mostly unchanged. And then the skills section has grown a bit. I've learned some new technologies since I made my previous resume. And then my soft skills, again, is pretty much all the same, except I removed the bilingual communication section. And then I moved the projects over down here, and they are much of the same. I've reworded some of them because I've redesigned some of these projects, and actually I removed one of the projects and replaced it with a more impressive one. So yeah, things have just changed overall in the project section, so I've updated the descriptions accordingly. Of course, I still have descriptive kind of bullets. Fast Engine is a game engine written in C++ using SDL graphics library. Quick Process, allows you to apply filters, built in Electron.js and OpenCV. I talk about the specific technologies and what it does. And then I've renamed that Entrepreneurial Experience section to Leadership Experience, and that's because, again, I am the co-founder and president of the club, and I just talk about what we do. And then I also have added a volunteer section since I have become a math tutor since I made that other one. So yeah, that's just a new thing that I've done. And of course, math tutoring, believe it or not, this is one of the biggest tips I can say is, as a software engineer, when you are applying to jobs, it is not 100% about code. It is to a large extent about your coding ability, but it is not 100% about code. Because when you are a software engineer, a large portion of your job is to communicate with others. You have to be on a team. You're always on a team. Sometimes the team's small, sometimes it's big. You have to meet a lot. You have to write your documentation when you write code. You just have to write comments like when you write code itself. That's written communication. You have to give, status updates to your team members, sometimes every day, sometimes every week. You have to review other people's code and give them feedback. Communication is a big portion of software engineering in general. So, just saying you're a math tutor, it tells a lot of things to your recruiter. You have the ability to communicate ideas because, there's an old kind of maxim in the world of education is if you cannot explain something simply, you do not know it well enough yourself. And being a tutor, being a teacher means by nature that you can explain things simply because you're explaining things to people who don't know them. So, of course, that's always a good thing to have. If you are a tutor or a teacher of any kind, it's a great thing to put on your software engineering resume. So yeah, this has pretty much been the difference. Overall, I've kind of removed some of the fluff from my previous resume. I've made it a little bit more concise. I've made it look a lot nicer. I've removed all of that ugly space in between the different sections. Those are all kind of tips. Again, some more tips on what to prioritize Well, it kind of depends on where you are on your journey. If you are just starting out, you are a freshman in college, and you don't have any previous internship experience, then I would prioritize your technical projects. And projects are so important because when you don't have work experience, projects are what the employer has to go off of. Because projects basically say, this is what I've made. Aside from that, the employer doesn't know how good at coding you are. Because as important as communication is, if you don't know how to code, then you can't get the job. So they need to see specifically what you've made. And they usually want to be able to see it. So that you need to put it somewhere so that they can see a demonstration of it, either on your GitHub or something like that. So again, projects are really important for people just starting out, including education too. If you are attending a prestigious university or if you have a great certificate or something like that, it's always great to put because, again, that's a little bit of credibility towards you as someone who doesn't have work experience. Of course, once you do have work experience, it trumps all. People are able to become software engineers and successful ones without ever going to college, sometimes without even going to a boot camp. If you're just, really good at what you do and you have a lot of experience, if you don't have the education, if you don't have, well, no, if you don't have the educations, usually you will have the projects and you will have the work experience because, again, work experience is the most important factor when it comes to getting hired as a software engineer. But if you don't have work experience, then projects and education are probably the most important factors. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say in terms of tips on writing a good resume. Some actionable tips again is like I just said, prioritize your different spaces, be concise, don't put too much empty space in your resume. Definitely write it in Word. It'll save you a ton of headaches because designing it in LaTeX or even in Illustrator or something will take you hours per resume. And remember, especially during resume season, you want to update your resume in real time. Like if something changes that could be beneficial, update it. And for all the applications that come after you update it, you use that new resume. So you want it to be very easily editable. And using Google Docs makes it so easy. And then even with Google Docs, you can download it as a PDF, and PDF is the most common format that you'll submit your resume to companies. So yeah, that's just, a big note is try to use Word or Doc or Google Docs because that's the easiest kind of platform to edit your resume on. And then, overall, it's just most of it depends, and I've gone over all of the different cases where you would do different things on your resume. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more content like this, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications whenever I post new videos. I'm trying to make more non kind of tutorial content every couple of days, and I'm going to continue doing that. And then my tutorial series will continue every single day like they have been for the last couple of weeks. I'm just going to be making these videos kind of as an addition to everything I'm currently uploading. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.